Beneath Us Original Mix, Midas and Sublion, 2015. Welcome back to Build Theory. I'm Aurian Archive, and let's get started. After I posted the previous stream on the uh, force field robotic mastermind, some comments were made in one of the City of Heroes chat rooms, in which and I'll quote, and yeah, I agree about pre-post IO. I got it back in 2005, 2006, but I saw people swearing that you shouldn't take them up until a few years ago on a secret. I've been listening to a YouTube video guide to Mastermind while I've been working, where the guys are squaring exactly both of those things. You shouldn't take your single target attack powers at all, and you have to macro to death. I don't even know where to start on this. So I'm going to start with the same way where I started with Dex Guide to War Shades, the guide to the MF War Shades. Dex was full of it. He didn't know what he was talking about, and I proved it. I built War Shades, and I built probably the best War Shade build that is possible without a series of new enhancements. Most people who are talking about Masterminds and City of Heroes do not know what they are talking about. They have not made builds, they do not understand what they are doing, and you probably should not be listening to anything. Now, I will caveat that, first of all, you can see on screen that I am playing, or I have brought one of my masterminds online. This is one of my AV hunters. Now, the only AV that this build has not proven capable of soloing has been Reichsman. Just cannot, Dark on bots alone cannot generate the necessary requirements to debuff Reichman while remaining survivable enough to withstand Reichman's assaults. And if I bring up the build and look at the build, you can see that there's a lot of ATOs going around here, some +5 that are not as obvious as they are in like a build when I bring it up in mids, or at least obviously visible. Now, the point of this is when it comes to masterminds, there were a number of mistakes that were made by Cryptic. And I do realize that by going over some of these mistakes, the exact person in Cryptic who remembers this rant from several years ago might be a little bit more identifying information than I personally want to give out, but I don't really see a way on how to approach this without delving into very specific previous information or things that have been said previously. And I'm going to start with the live devs, or rather Cryptic, blew it. Cryptic decided that Masterminds were to be the tanking archetype on the villain side. No. Masterminds were never designed to be the tanks. No, that's just false. It is wrong. It is not true. Cryptic made a lot of mistakes in making Masterminds to inevitably make them less functional than they possibly could have been. One of the big mistakes early on is that there is no concept of formations. The pets just follow the player anywhere. And while you can give your pet specific... I'm sorry, my cat had decided to join the conversation with a very loud meow. And a headbutt. No, I'm not going to let you near the mic again. You headbutted me last time. All right. There are very few controls that are actually exposed and usable to the player. You have a go to command, and we'll just send the bot over there. But you cannot go to. You have to control each separately. Or you have to use the all pets. You cannot group the pets separately. You cannot have 1, 2, 3 follow a specific path. You have to either control them by group. Your controls are very rough. And the moment I exit and get out of a certain range, and we can see that my bot joined me. And now they are just following me wherever I go in a random pattern. There is no concept of formation. You cannot specify that the bots always surround you in a square, in a triangle, in a pentagram. You cannot specify any active behavior from the bots. You cannot control the individual powers that each bot has. And like, say, I bring up info on the battle drone here. Well, that doesn't really tell me the information I need. So we'll go into manage and we'll look at battle drones. And we see that we have laser burst is their only attack right now. So we're going to hit upgrade. I'm going to hit second upgrade. And now we're going to go back in. And we still see that the bots only have laser burst assigned to them, even though equip gave them heavy laser burst and upgrade gave full auto laser to battle drones. So although they now have more damage capability, you still as the player have no direct control over what powers are used when. Now you'll also notice that I have the force field shields around me because my protector bots have buffed me as the player. I have no method exposed to control what my bots buff, who, what, when, why, or where. There is nothing. So no formation. I can't gather the bots around me. When they walk with me, they can only do an AI follow. And if I like fly, they are not granted fly as well. They cannot fly with me. If I have jump, they cannot jump with me. If I have super speed, they cannot super speed with me. And there are several mechanics hidden within the game engine to address these problems. If you get far enough away from your bots, they will start teleporting in behind you. So rather than traveling with the player, keeping lockstep with the player, getting the exact same movement the player has in formation with the player, and see, there they go, they're right behind me. They've been warped in just to follow me wherever. This was a solution around implementing a synchronization feature between the player character and their pets as a mastermind. So, okay, no formation, no control. All you really have exposed are some generic attack commands and basic control of what modes you can put them into. Now, this character is a remake of a character from Live. This was on Triumph server, and my distinct memory of this character at low levels on City of Villains launch was chasing Death Surge around and everybody fussing at me because my Twilight Grasp I couldn't activate it enough to debuff the giant monster. Yeah, not really a big surprise on that one. Okay, so we're kind of just going down a list of problems. And eventually, there are some ways to control aggregation of pets. I prefer Incant. Brings all the pets closer to me, just automatically summons them for wherever. I've now also got a healing buff going on so that my Twilight Grasp now does even more healing because the healing resistance is decreased. But there's a problem with that. The big problem being Incant summons the entire team. And a lot of players really don't like a mastermind that's incanting everywhere to keep their pets up with them. It's really annoying. Okay, so what we've got then is masterminds weren't really thought out. They didn't have any features that made them uh, useful as a controllable pet to the player. The controls that you do get are very limited. A lot of players began to swear on you needed macros to control your mastermind. Well, I'm going to be blunt about this. and it's the same thing that applies to desktop Linux. If at any point your official recommendation for dealing with your system is go to the command line, you failed. You've failed badly. And that's kind of, if you're having to resort to slash commands to get your pets to do something, to behave, and give me a second here. And we bring up Paragon Wiki. And we'll come over here. And we'll make you visible and bring you to the front. And we'll do list of slash commands on Paragon Wiki. And we'll just do master, okay, pets. Okay, now we got a list of, there are only 15 instances of pets. You have clear pet names, pet come all, send commands to all pets, send command to pet summon by name power, pet say all, pet say name, pet say, pet power, release pets, display the name of your pets. Okay, you finally do get to target custom next, which enables you to specify specific targeting of whatever is being targeted. And one of these, actually, 3 of these, the final 3 are the only ones that exclude pets, or include and exclude pets. So target custom next can exclude your pet, can include your pets, or can be your friendlies including pets. So there's not actually that much in the slash command to begin with that gives you any kind of control over what your pets do. It doesn't give you any more control than what you get over the controls that are already exposed in game. The all attack, the attack target, all of the click features that are exposed here. Those are the only options that are exposed through the slash system. So anyone who's telling you that you need to use macros when everything you can already possibly use is already available in a drag and drop click interface is flat out lying to you. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how to check Paragon Wiki. They don't know how to check slash commands. They don't know what they're doing. Okay, so now that we've just thoroughly smashed through every single guide to Masterminds you've probably ever heard or seen before, that I just conclusively proved they don't know what they're doing, they don't know what the systems do, they don't know how to do basic research to show you what's going on. They don't know how to demonstrate in-game your characters working as you would expect your characters to work. How do you build masterminds? Well, honestly, it's the exact same way that you would build defenders or corruptors. Almost any defender or corruptor build. And we'll just go ahead and flash the browser window up here for a second. Let me get it open to the right page. Bring up the browser. Almost any corruptor or defender build that includes a buff or debuff set that is on a mastermind can be ported over. And that's the set you use. Because here's the catch. The mastermind is not about your pets. The mastermind is about you, the player. How survivable are you? Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, let's bring up my stats and take a look at them. Sorry, not incarnate abilities, I want combat attributes. And we'll hide power sources, and we'll go to defense. Do you have soft cap to a defense? Obviously, I've got soft cap to range, smashing, lethal, energy, negative energy, partially thanks to the protector bots over here being calculated in-game as protecting me. I actually am into incarnate soft cap to energy defense. If I bring up and look at go to Enhancements, Manage, and go to Darkest Night, we see that I have negative 17.2, 20% two hit on target. So you can add 17 defense to all of these values. So I'm also on a minion class target of even level. I am in 30 plus 17, 47%. I am soft capped to melee, AoE, lethal, smashing. Well, I'm not soft capped to that on Protector Bot. So melee, AoE, fire, cold. The only things I'm still not soft capped to with Darkest Night are my psionic and two hit defense. And those aren't the only dart power that I have. I mean, I've got Twilight Grasp, which takes away two hit. I've got Tar Patch, which slows and removes flyability. I've got Howling Twilight, which does target slow, regen. I've got a Dark Servant, which implies its own debuffs. So, on top of all of that, I have a lot of survivability as a character, even if I don't have the bots. This enabled me to pick up something like Provoke. I can go taunt a giant monster. So, let's go find one. And my best bet right now is probably going to be wanting to look in Craze Folly for this. Or maybe Perez Park for Kraken. No, Craze Folly, Jurassic. Probably we'll do Craze Folly and Jurassic first, and the reason we're doing that one first is that Kraken is relatively low level. It's kind of the first creature that people see whether or not they can successfully solo is Kraken. That's pretty much if you can solo Kraken, well then you're well on your way to uh, at least you can do something. Come on, I've got tanks that can solo Kraken. Yes, they're the bio tanks, but that's, kind of beside the point. They're still a tank. Okay, technically, I think a rad tank could also solo Kraken, but I haven't actually. I've got a rad scrapper, and saying a rad scrapper can solo Kraken is kind of like, well, I would hope so. Okay. So, building masterminds. Really, all you're doing is you're taking the same exact buff debuff slotting that you would use on a defender or corruptor, and all you're really doing is just massaging it and fitting it around the pet. Uh, the pet ones. Now, if you have pets on a defender or corruptor, you're already halfway home because you're probably already using the recharge intensive pets somewhere in your defender corruptor build. Excuse me. So, in and of itself, most portings are pretty much only accounting for the changes in ATOs. Now, on my masterminds here, you can see that I only took a 4 slot on Superior Command of the Mastermind on Assault Bot, and I did do a 5 slot on Protector Bots, which was different from the Force Field, uh, from the Bots Force Field build that I did a little earlier today, where I only did like a 4 slot of each of them. And I went with the Soulbound Damage Recharge Accuracy. Now, you might also notice that my bots are not technically, they're not pushing all of the buff that are available in the pet sets, and that's because I am a dark. I do have a heal that heals the team around me. Force Field doesn't get any kind of buffs like that. I have other buff. I have debuff to apply to. Uh, I have debuff to apply to targets that I am attacking. A bot Force Field doesn't have that, so a bot's Force Field thus must find other ways to increase the survivability of the bots, as well as the survivability of the player, hence going for Victory Rush, for the chance for self-heal, putting the self-heal in stamina. And I'm about to start targeting, seeing whether or not we can dig up a Jurassic. And, well, if he's out here, I'm not tabbing him yet. Just look for the purple tab. Okay, no sign of Jurassic in his normal haunts. Or at least I'm not tabbing him. Let's check our map. Do we got an overlay showing his spawning points? Not really. Okay, so probably safe to say that right now Jurassic is not up. Alright, so as I guess we'll go look for Kraken then, since I'm not pulling Jurassic up out here. And yeah, I could go to Echo DA and summon Adamastor, which, okay, that may make the points just as well. We'll head to Echo DA and see if I can summon old Fearbutt. That may end poorly for me, though. Wow, that was some lag. Let's make sure I'm still streaming. Well, it says I'm still streaming. Echo, Dark Astoria. Well, assuming it wants to load, am I... Okay, there we go. Alright. And now we'll book it to the other end. Yeah, flying in Dark Astoria. It's a good thing that you can't actually crash through buildings, otherwise many of these buildings would have holes in them. That's going to be kind of wild if I just flew a straight line through Dark Astoria and didn't hit a single thing. But that's exactly what happened. And then we'll drop. Okay. Can I summon him? Okay, apparently... Okay, there's the summoning ritual. And this could either go badly or... There he is. Alright. And we'll throw... And we'll put you on. Alright, and now I can basically set up to provoke Adamastor, keep him focused on me, and my Twilight Graph lowers his regeneration and heals my pets around me. And you see that I'm cranking for like 384. Let's hit Incant. And now I'm healing for 614. That's the power of incandescence. And you can see Adamastor's health is dropping. I'm not really having to use my primary or secondary power or primary powers to deal damage. My pets are taking care of that for me. They're kind of on auto blast. All I have to do is just worry about the buffs and debuffs. Now, right now, I'm stunned. I really probably should have swapped to Clarion before doing this. Because, oh, I don't even have a Clarion made. Ah. Okay, I need to get above that foot stomp of his. But I need to stay close enough that I can still heal my pets. And there we go. Now we've got the setup going on. Over here on good time, I'm going to throw Spirit Ward. And if like I need an emergency heal, I've got the power boost up, which just took it up to like 800 heal on the click, and that's outside of incanned. So I'm still debuffing him. I've got all this regen going on, and now I can crank it up with support radial. And as you can see, my pets are doing just fine. They're surviving, they're living, and Adamastor's health is still dropping. I haven't even had to bring out my Knives of Radial. And Fuzzy Fluffy, my Dark Servant, is coming up. Timer is at, what is this? 1 second left. Let's go ahead and get a new Fuzzy Fluffy out. And as you can see, I'm not having to use any macros. I'm just using the tools that are already given to me in the game, and I can make this work. Adamastor's already at half health, and I'm not even cranking the maximum amount of damage that I could technically be bringing to this particular party. What was that? Oh, Secret Drone. All right. Can every mastermind do this? No. Every mastermind is going to have different strengths and weaknesses, and your buff set should be focused on what those strengths and weaknesses are. Some masterminds favor shooting from range. Others favor getting in close to melee combat. If you took a mastermind class that shoots from range and you decided for whatever reason to take kinetics and you cannot properly fulcrum shift your pets because they never get within melee range, uh, here's your sign. Bad combination. Not all combinations that you can make will be effective. Masterminds, unlike, you can almost make any other combination of powers in the game work to at least a suboptimal level. You can use your power pools, your tertiaries, your ancillary pools. You can use all of those to round your character out and figure out how to do something possibly a little different than you originally may have intended or anticipated. Keeping that in mind, that's why it becomes so critical to think about your power choices ahead of time and maybe look through and check out the powers that your pets will be getting as a mastermind before you actually make a power combination. Kinetics is a really good example of a set that's not it's not going to work with bots. As you can see, Good Time has set up out here on the outside, Tail Wagging is set up on the outside, Ankle Nipping is down here, he's set up on the outside. So if I was a Kinetics, oh yeah, I could be hitting Adamastor here over and over with Transfusion and Transference, just rip his endurance away from him, rip his regeneration away from him, debuff him entirely, and I could stay within melee range probably safely. But I wouldn't be able to do anything to buff the bots behind me. So Kinetics is really good for a set that has a lot of melee characters. Oh, there we go. I am out of endurance. And I don't have anything to... Oh, yes, I do. Please die, please die. Victory rush, victory rush. Give me some end back. Okay, recovery back. Yeah, that's something else that you have to account for is what your character is actually capable of pulling off. And this is why you see a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about saying, don't take your 3 attacks, don't take your T1, don't take your T3, don't take your T5. Well, they're really useful if you are capable of holding some form of aggro. They are really useful for helping you to hold that aggro. They really are. They are also useful if you don't have anything else to just add a little bit more damage to a hardened target. But because the endurance costs are so high, you do need an effective method of recovering that endurance. Uh, on this one, obviously, I went with Victory Rush, and as we can see, my uh, endurance started to come back pretty good. And what was our time on Victory Rush? All right, 3:43. Okay. That was one of the things I kind of meant to check while I was thinking about it. Recharge time 5 minutes. I'm pretty sure that I hadn't, from triggering it till now, it hasn't been 2 minutes. So maybe you could probably view it in the stream. While the internal recharge may not be affected, apparently global recharge does have an effect on the power. So that it may be what I'm remembering. Uh, and I'll stream till this ends. All right. So we've been over. You can basically take any corruptor build with a buff set or debuff set and apply it to a mastermind. We've been over. You don't need to do macros. Everything that you need to control your character or everything that is available to you control your character is already exposed in the user interface, and it's not much. We've already been over. There are massive workarounds to somehow make the character set work for all of the problems and all of the lack of features and functionality that are available. And right now, I'm having a brief moment of wondering. I didn't turn tactics or maneuvers back on. Oh well. Uh, anyways, this kind of comes back to. Uh, you can see I'm using cardiac core right now, whereas in PhD, when I had spec this character, when I brought this build up, it had Vigor listed, and Vigor was to improve my endurance and healing at the same time. But I have cardiac in here because it had the greatest amount of endurance cost, and you can still see I just plowed straight through endurance. And that is one of the big problems with Masterminds, and actually a lot of power sets outside of Masterminds, is the live developers never rebalanced the endurance cost to reflect how powers are actually used in game. But that's a global uh, here's your sign, Bill Engvall saying insert here. It was a massive problem. Everyone had to take stamina, and instead of just fixing the endurance costs, Cryptic just said, we're going to make stamina inherent. Rather than fix the problem, we're just going to patch the problem over. Wow, I have never actually fought Adamaster on this character. I know a lot of people are going to go, wait a second, your Barnes Dark was like in DA, like uh, initiate team like every day or something. Well, yeah, probably was. Okay, so we'll head over here, and I'm still kind of keeping an eye on Victory Rush because I really, while I'm thinking about it from the earlier stream, looking what that recharge time is when it actually goes off. And let's check and make sure we are still streaming. Okay, so that's your quick primer to Mastermind. So recapping once again, while I wait for a Victory Rush to count down, is you don't need macros. Anyone who tells you you need macros doesn't know what they're talking about, has not done the research, doesn't know how to look through Paragon Wiki. You do have very limited UI controls available. It is not by any means a real-time strategy replacement. It is extremely limited, extremely frustrating, but it is what it is. You can take any defender or corruptor build that has a buff or debuff set and port it to a mastermind. You will have to make adjustments, But your buff and debuff slotting is exactly how you would slot a Masterminds buff and debuff. You do have higher endurance cost. You will need to focus more on endurance modification, be it recovery or endurance reduction, reducing the amount of cost it takes to power any single power. You can run multiple toggles at a time, like I can run maneuvers, tactics, scorpion shield, fly, shadowfall, and combat jumping. But you do have to keep an eye on your endurance management until or unless the endurance costs are revisited and corrected to be more in line. Actually, what would probably be a better idea is to just give Masterminds an increased endurance pool. Like every pet that you get when you activate, or every pet that you get when you get to that, or you get that pet, like it contributes to a synchronicity for your endurance. So if you have all 5 pets out and each pet grants you 10% endurance, your endurance pool grows by 50%. Now, if you have another, and we'll discount pets like Dark Servant that can be had in the buff debuff sets or otherwise to kind of simplify things down. So, a synchronicity there, all 5 pets out, you get 50% more endurance. Your recovery works off of that. You now have a way to really approach and solve the issues with endurance management without having to go through and rebalance every single power, which is what should have been done. But now this power system, everyone knows, everyone plans for how bad the endurance management was and the lack of a proper fix when it was appropriate to fix. When the devs realized, when Cryptic realized everyone was going to run multiple toggles at a time, not just go, oh, I'm only going to run, and I'm clicking all these off for a reason. I'm only going to run tactics. I'm not going to run any other toggle. I'm just going to run tactics. Oh, I need more defense. I'm just going to run maneuvers. No, no. It's whoever, and I know it was Gecko. I'm not even sure why I'm dodging around the question. It was Gecko, it was Jack. How they viewed the game working is not how it actually worked. I Those two had no business being in the jobs they were in, but if it weren't for them, the game wouldn't exist. Some might call that a paradox. I call that it's game development. Sometimes you need people who don't know what they're doing to do something, and you wind up with something that's still amazing decades later. Yeah, and sorry, that's why I call it hybrid theory, although this was supposed to be a build theory. Go off on tangents. We got Victory Rush back, so let's go ahead and we'll smack this little circle of thorns around and hit him. We know Victory Rush has a 5-minute timer. Okay, it did clock in at 5 minutes, so no, my global recharge did not appear to be affecting it. I'm a little shocked, actually, because I could have sworn that my global recharge at least was affecting it. But now, on camera, I have confirmed that it is not being affected by global recharge. It's not being affected by internal recharge either, so we can cancel that out. Uh, Nice to know. And now that I've done that on camera, all right, am I going to show any other ports of builds into Masterminds in the future? Probably. Uh, do I play a lot of Masterminds? Oh, hell no. And I can tell you exactly why I don't play a lot of Masterminds. And this is something that's always bugged me from the day City of Villains launched, is I can never articulate why I did not like Masterminds, why I did not like the set. And it's not due to the errors that were made. It's not due to the lack of features. It's not due to the inherent imbalance of the set in regards to player performance. And do keep in mind, I am on a high-end, mega expensive, nigh impossible build going on here, so that I have scaling defenses up and down levels. That's really the point why all of these are tuned instead of plussed, and so that I can go down and run in the mid range and still have all of my soft cap defense, which is really useful if you're escorting low level task forces along. But the reason I don't like Masterminds is that they take you out of the fight. City of Heroes is very much a personal one-on-one or one versus 100, the player being the one experience. You click a power, something happens. You attack something, something happens. You hit a button, something happens. But with Masterminds, that's not true. A lot of your offensive firepower, a vast majority of your offensive firepower, in the case of bots where their firepower is not the actual damage that each attack does, it's the debuff and regeneration that can land. The vast majority of your offensive output is not from you. The vast majority of the effects are not from you. You have, excepting tank or tertiaries, the lowest debuff values, buff values in the game. The only ones that perform worse than you are tank or tertiary powers. And even then, they're not supposed to perform worse than you. You're supposed to be the bottom level. Tank or tertiaries are only supposed to perform and badly as a mastermind. That's it. That's the bottom. You are the basement. And that's what kills masterminds for me, my interest in them, is that you have so little effect on what actually happens. You can't control your characters. You cannot match other archetypes. You can't even come close to matching other archetypes. Power for power, you are outclassed every single way possible. The only, the only benefit to masterminds is that it's great for lazy players. Or, alternatively, it's great for players who have terrible connections. Think about this. When City of Heroes launched, broadband wasn't a thing. Most people probably were still playing on 56K modems. We're talking about before World of Warcraft. We're talking about when Phantasy Star Online was the only other action RPG online out there. And it had only just launched on the GameCube. I mean, you have to keep in mind that when this game came along, people who could, when masterminds were introduced, is that people, it was very realistic that most people who could get into the game didn't have good connections. They were on phone modems. And when you consider that era, that computing era, what was available, the hardware that you could have, what it could do, masterminds weren't such a bad option. Because you could log into the game and the bots or your other pets could do the work for you. You weren't necessarily trapped, as it were, trying to control a character who you push forward. It's like I tap forward and my character steps forward. But if if on on the live servers back in when City of Villains launched, you could tap forward, and it could be a minute or two before your character actually did anything. Or like earlier in Oro, I flew all the way to the back of Oro, and then had a network lag, and I was back to the Oro entrance. When you're dealing with that kind of lag and latency, masterminds were actually a really good archetype to get players into the game. You may not be very effective, you may not be very good, but you could just, set yourself on follow, have another character, maybe you had a better connection, target them, set on follow them around, and your bots could just do all the work for you. Or your other pets, your ninjas, obviously I run bots, so every time that I think about masterminds, I think about bots. But your other pets could do the work for you. And that's really why you would play masterminds to begin with. Is it's not that they were good, they weren't. It's not that they offered a different experience. They did, but it's a delayed experience. Is that they didn't require the real-time input interaction up to the moment response because everything's extrapolated away. You don't have direct control over your character. You have very limited controls, and a lot of those controls just reset the moment you as the player do anything else, and everything goes back to the static defaults, which is great on phone modems. It really was. And masterminds are an archetype that they have not aged gracefully, not because they were inherently flawed, They have not aged gracefully because they were inherently broken to begin with. The developers cryptic passed the buck, or they didn't quite. It's not that they passed the buck, they just punted it into the next time zone rather than deal with the problem. And later on, Paragon never had the resources to dedicate to the problem, and now here we are so many years later. That's a big mess to fix. I mean, eventually somebody probably will fix it. It probably will be the Homecoming devs. And maybe we will get the power rebalance on the endurance cost where we can probably look at endurance cost being not requiring inherent stamina, everything being fixed on new formulas. But that again is a Herculean task. No one really wants to do it when we can already mitigate it, get around it, and pretend like it's not even a problem now. This has been Aurian Archive. This is Build Theory for Masterminds.